Professor Jen, lecture number 2 on our lecturecast for writing about love, sex, and intimacy. A pleasure to be with you in our virtual world, virtual classroom. A couple housekeeping issues for you this evening. This now is week number 2, chat number 2. All of our chats should be taking place now in week number 2. Next week will be week number 3, and of course we will be going to week number 3 next week. If I look down, it's only because I am looking and examining my notes, so please excuse me, but there were some things I wanted to cover thoroughly this evening in this lecturecast. For those of you who are relying on NTID captioning services, it will take 4 to 5 days until the captioning is done. For this coming Friday, you have several assignments that I gave you last week that happen to be listed in my courses. So I'm looking forward to reading those assignments. Tonight, I will be giving you some more assignments and things for you to do, and I'm hoping that you will have them prepared for our Thursday night chat. The chat won't be live, but I will be putting up chat questions and soliciting ideas from you, because if we look at the syllabus together, we have a writing opportunity coming up, and it's called Peer Editing Review and Assignment Number 1, looking at the syllabus that's due for next week, week number 3, so we're going to discuss that now. What I would like you to do is I would like you to think about the word intimacy. I'd like you to do some research on the word intimacy. What does it mean? What does it mean to a variety of people? What does it mean to a variety of age groups? How is the word intimacy, being close, being vulnerable, etc., changed from our developmental years, meaning birth through maybe 10 or 12, then to our teenage years, our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, etc. I'll give you some examples. Sometimes intimacy when we're very, very young, like in kindergarten, in my definition, can include what? Being frightened or vulnerable and asking for a parent's hand and holding that hand significantly tight, because why? We're afraid and we need that intimacy. Do I mean sex? No. Intimacy can also be the relationship that we see often in a youngster. We were all there once. You were too. So was I. Where there's secrets that they might tell a stuffed animal. I know I had one. Things that perhaps you wouldn't share with another adult, where the stuffed animal becomes personified. Intimacy. Behind me you see Lola, that's my little chihuahua. She and I are very intimate. Are we having sex? No. Do I tell Lola all of my secrets? Yes. She's my friend. I think Lola knows more about me than I know about myself. Isn't it lovely that she's looking herself on video? I'm glad it's her and it's not me. Anyway, we'll go back to my lecturecast. Thank you, Lola. I'd like you to discover and rediscover intimacy. So your writing assignment for next week, this might be a good time for you to get a pen and paper out, is to start thinking about a particular age, a place where you have been thus far in your life, or your current age, and how you have intimacy in your life. Is it with other people? Is it with a pet? Is it with a hobby? Is it something that you feel passionately about? Or do you lack intimacy in your life? Closeness with friends, a special someone that you might chat with, etc. For this week, I would like you to look up a definition for yourself of intimacy, and I would like you to create by Thursday, so you have a little bit of time yet, by this Thursday in chat, week number 2, I would like you to come out with your own personal intimacy statement and exactly what it means to you. Again, this Thursday on chat. Post for us. The first assignment, which is due not this Friday, but the following Friday, which is on your syllabus, week number 3, assignment number 1, I would like you to specifically isolate a time in life. It can even be in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. And I'd like you in 2 to 3 pages to discuss how intimacy may change from one period in your life to another. What happens to people, for an example, that are divorced? Where do they then find their intimacy if they're no longer finding it in that partner? How about you college students? You're so happy to tear out of your family's homes and come to campus. Maybe a mother or father sitting home after that first weekend and you're not there, though they complained about you plenty while you were there, and they've lost that intimacy. Do I mean sex? No. They miss having you around. They miss maybe sitting in the kitchen asking you the same question 500 times that you already answered and you got annoyed every time you answered it. Maybe they miss the fact that they've asked you to turn down your earbuds, but you didn't. They've gone over the rules several times with you, what time to be home, and you weren't. But they still miss that intimacy of seeing you every day, being part of your life, and having you part of their life. Perhaps you're missing a high school friend or a long-time acquaintance. I'll give you an example. I happen to be an only child, and I have one very good friend. She and I met in kindergarten. Actually, preschool. We were both 3. She's also an only child. We came from a similar cultural background and religious background, and we became very fast friends. And how it happened was this. She had something, I didn't have it, and I wanted it. So I threw paint on her. Till this day, we're very good friends. She lives in Boston, and I live here in Rochester, New York. Sometimes very long periods of time go between us, and we don't speak. No Facebook, no Skype, no nothing. But I've had crises in my life, as so has she, because we're both approaching 50. And she'll call, and it's just as if we're both sitting in the dorm room all over again, as well as preschool and kindergarten and grade school, and the time hasn't passed. It's just she looks a little older, and so do I. That's intimacy, when I can call her in the middle of the night and tell her how petrified I am over a mammogram. Intimacy also changes sometimes when we leave relationships. Sometimes we're not prepared to be alone. Or sometimes we don't even know how to be alone. So we seek other forms of intimacy. Do I mean sex? Maybe. But intimacy, as people get older, changes. I remember a woman had once said to me when I was in my 20s, but I didn't understand at the time, that her husband was ill and he was in a nursing home. And she said that she went and visited every single day. So I said, well, doesn't that take a toll on you? You know, you have all this life to live and you're still healthy and you can be out. And she said, what would be the purpose? Oh, see, Lola wants to be intimate. Excuse me. Thank you, Lola. She said, what would be the purpose in me going out and having fun when I spent over 50 years with this person? I said, well, what kind of condition is he in when you go to the nursing home? Like, I had it in my mind that maybe they played cards, they watched television together, that maybe they played checkers, chess. I don't know. I was in my 20s. What did I know? I said, what do you do when you get there? She said, he's usually sleeping. So I said, I repeated it back. I said, so in other words, you go to the nursing home to visit your husband who's usually sleeping, and you have intimacy like this. She said, oh yes, a lot of intimacy. I said, you know, I really can't relate. And she could see I was only in my 20s at the time, and she proceeded to explain to me the following, that she liked to go to the nursing home, and she liked to hold his hand, and she said that she would like to comb his hair the way that she remembered it, and that sometimes she would put some cologne on him, and she would also lay down next to him in the bed while he was apparently sleeping, and she said she'd like to hear his heartbeat, She made a very funny joke that his heart beat much slower as he was much older, as when they were young and in their teens and in their 20s. She said that his heart would beat like a racehorse. It changed, but her feelings for him didn't change. It's just the circumstances changed. Their level of intimacy changed. So again, for the assignment for next week, 2 to 3 pages, I'd like you to pick a particular age group. You decide the age group, and discuss intimacy and how one finds it in that age group. How you find it, perhaps, if you've picked your age group, or an age group that you already have passed. Something else you'll need to do for this assignment is look in the chat room, and you're going to have to buddy up with somebody of your choosing. I don't care who you couple with in the chat room. Introduce yourself. Come right out in the chat room and say, who wants to be my buddy? What's going to happen is before you put the paper in the drop box for me, again, double spaced, 1-inch margins, I would like you to swap the paper with somebody else so they can do some critique and editing on your paper. And I'd like to know who that person is. In other words, I don't only want to be the person that reads your paper. I want you to have another person in the class read your paper. So it's really a 2-step process. And that's how we get our editing points. For this week, Thursday, you have this assignment that I just gave you before in our lecture cast, so if you need to, you'll rewind it, of what it is that I'd like you to do. Define intimacy. Perhaps find an article about intimacy. Share it with us, summarize it for us, and start writing. Part of the grade for this course, as you know, is involvement in chat. I'm not seeing a lot of involvement yet, but yet I did give you many assignments that I need done by this Friday in chat. So that's where you'll post it. Today's Tuesday, and I'll start looking for them Friday, no later than Friday midnight. So I leave you with these few thoughts on intimacy. Let's summarize. Does intimacy always mean sex? No. Can it sometimes mean sex? Yes. Does intimacy change through every period of our life? Sure does. Can we have intimacy with partners that are, well, non-traditional? A good friend, a parent, a pet, a stuffed animal? Yes. I remember a film once. It was with Tom Hanks. Let me check with my technical advisor. Pardon me. Do you remember the film? Tom Hanks, and he's out on a raft. He becomes like a plane crash victim or a boat victim. I'll come to you in a moment with this film. Anyway, let me give you a little bit of the background. There was this man played by Tom Hanks. Castaway, I think, was the name of the film. Castaway, was that it? And in Castaway, he winds up on an island all by himself, extremely desolate, in his late 30s or early 40s, and he has to figure out a way to forage in this tropical environment. Of course, he'd like to get off this island, and he finds himself there for some years. It takes him some time to build a raft. Some of you might have seen this film. It's called Castaway. Thank you, technical advisement. That's called intimacy, when you can look over in the living room and say to your husband, technical advisement. Anyway, he builds this raft, and he actually is talking to this little stick figure he made, because apparently he'd been alone for so many years on this little island in the film Castaway that he was trying to have some intimacy, even hear the words come out of his own mouth, even though nobody was there. He built this little stick figure, and as he's trying to escape the island, don't you think that the little stick figure finds itself capsized and falls into the ocean? And Tom Hanks, the protagonist, can't obviously jump in and get it. It's lost forever. See the expression on Tom Hanks' face, the actor, as he loses his little stick figure that he's personified. It's as if he lost his best friend into the ocean. And at that time, in that place in his life, That was his best friend, because that's all he had to confide in, was this stick figure, his intimacy. I think back about all the pets I've had in my life, various dogs, cats, and each one of them that have passed along have taken to their grave a lot of my secrets and my intimacy, and I miss them terribly. I've told pets things that I probably would never tell another soul. I'd like us to discuss that, how it is that we confide in other people, or other things, or pets, how it feels to be vulnerable, etc. And we're going to be writing about that this week. In chat on Thursday night, I'll load up some more questions for the following week, as well as you have to plan on doing this assignment now that's due a week from this coming Friday, the end of week 3. I'm also going to need to hear from you which 2 films you're going to be seeing, and I'm going to need that relatively soon, as I say in the syllabus, no longer than week 4. What is the purpose of the films? Because you're going to be leading the discussions in chat as we move along regarding the film, and different questions that I ask that I'd like you to write about. Because this course is what? Research, thinking, rethinking, writing, and rewriting. I leave you with those thoughts. Thank you again for letting me come into the virtual world, having you in course, having our virtual lecturecast, wishing you well, and I look forward to seeing those assignments from last week this Friday in chat number 3. Excuse me, I apologize, chat number 2. Again, I'll repeat. Last week's assignments in chat number 2 by this Friday. And I leave you with that. Good night, be well, and be happy.